Well, hi, and yes, do you like the hat? You have no idea how cold it is in Cape Town today. So, here in Africa, we don't build our houses for the freezing cold. We have these beautiful plate glass windows. Yes, and so when there's a storm like there is at the moment, then it gets incredibly cold. And if you can hear me through the storm, I'm impressed. So there's lots of creaking and banging and crazy noises at the moment. But what I wanted to talk to you today about is my last podcast, which was the brainwaves that you want in your midlife. And I thought that it would be useful to talk about something in terms of your self-coaching, because I'm noticing what's happening with people, and especially when you read online about brainwaves, that there's a way of thinking about our brainwaves that I don't think is particularly helpful for us. So in the podcast, I talk about, the five different brain waves that are running in our brain, and I go through, what those look like and what's actually happening in our brains when they're running. And I talk about a study on monks' brains to see what happens in meditation with our brain and how we can actually, on purpose and intentionally, shift our brain waves through meditation and with various other practices, but I use a meditation as the example in this particular one. But what I want to talk about today is something that I call all or nothing thinking, because this is what happens when you Google brainwaves. It's all about the brainwaves that you don't want and all about the brainwaves that you do want. And it's so interesting to me that we do this, and I think it's just a default that we do as humans. I mean, I do it too, it's like it's either this or it's that, it's black or it's white, it's good, it's bad, it's wrong, it's right. We always split like this, and this is exactly what's happening when we think about our brain waves. So for example, most of the time when we're awake, we are in beta. So beta is kind of where we're focused and we're decision making, and our brain is really working quite hard. And yet it's also associated to times of high anxiety and high stress. So if you think about where we are today in the world and how many people are struggling with anxiety and even work stress, there's a lot of talk about we're in high beta too much. It's a bit like saying we've got too much cortisol in our systems. And I want us to just be cautious and careful about the way we think about these things. Because yes, there is a too much. There's also a too little. But the real thing is what's running in our brains, what hormones are running in our bodies, is it the optimal one for what we're trying to do at the time? One of the things I talk about a lot in my coaching is moving from reactive mode to responsive mode. And in responsive mode, we are responding to the world very consciously and intentionally. And in reactive mode, it's automatic, fast, and it's our dominant automatic patterns. Now, if you hear me talk, usually I'm talking about the reactive mode in not such a positive way, all right? Because, in our relationships, if somebody says something to us, do we want to be reactive? Because we just bang and start shouting back. So we're usually trying to move through coaching into more responsive ways of dealing with the world rather than the sort of toddler with a knife automatic reaction. However, let's be honest, in times of survival, you want to be an automatic reaction. My cousin was just in a really serious car accident where a car was coming towards her on in the same lane, and she didn't have time to respond and think about it. She had to automatically react to get herself out of the way. And the same goes if I think, I had an encounter, let's call it, with a herd or a pride of lions many years ago, and I was living in Zambia, and if I hadn't been in reactive mode, well, those little lions might have had a taste of a piece of me. So we do want this. So actually, even when I talk about reactive and responsive, we actually do want it at the right times in our lives. And the same goes with our brainwave patterns. So we're talking in meditation of going from beta down into alpha, and then the more we meditate, possibly into theta. And the theta brainwaves are the more slow brainwaves. They're before we, they're sort of unconscious. It's before we drop off into that deep restorative sleep, which is the delta waves. And yes, we do. I think many of us are wired and tired, especially in midlife. And that probably means that we're running in high beta a lot of the time, maybe even predominantly, and that we can really serve our health and our happiness by bringing our high beta possibly into low beta, down into alpha through meditation, and then possibly into theta. But be careful, because beta is getting a bad rap out there. And, it's almost like the media would have it that we're permanently in an alpha state. But an alpha state is a state of daydreaming, and it's a state of relaxation. It's not necessarily the state that we want to be in when we are really focused and we're problem solving and we're thinking incredibly hard. I mean, interestingly, the gamma waves, which we only go into for flashes of insight, are quite hectic brainwaves. They're going like this, so they're very fast compared to the theta doing this. So it is interesting because creativity sits often in the theta, because that is kind of where our cognitive thinking brain relaxes or switches off, and our unconscious comes through. So creative insights come through. Now, what is interesting about a creative insight is that's actually a flash of gamma. And monks can hold those flashes of gamma for a long time. We only get them for milliseconds. But yes, so I think, the point of what I'm here for on the live today is this all or nothing thinking. Okay, so let's not make the mistake of saying that beta waves, like cortisol, is always bad, or like adrenaline in our system. Beta waves are always bad. We do need them and we do want them. So what I want, a really interesting tool that you can use is noticing yourself if you are in either or thinking, black and white, right or wrong, yes and no thinking, or if you can shift to and thinking. So this and that. So beta and alpha is good for me. It's just what's appropriate to the situation. Delta and theta are useful to me in sleep. Just what's appropriate for what I'm really wanting in the moment. And this shift in our perspective can be used right across our lives, not just in what kind of brainwaves do we want, and what kind of hormones do we want in our system. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I got onto Google the other day about something about gamma waves, and it was just, everything was about, no, you don't want beta and you must be an alpha and this is the place to hang out. And it's like, it's not actually true. If I look here with beta, too little beta has got to do with ADHD, depression, and poor cognition. So if we get too little of that when we really need it, we don't want to go there. So yes, so to play with this idea of all or nothing thinking, and to use the word and as opposed to or. So not this or that, it's this and that. And how can anything be both? Because that's a fabulous question to ask yourself with anything that seems stuck in your life. Can it be both? Can it be this and that? And, we are very dualistic in our thinking. So this is just an invitation into different possibilities for yourself. Is just ask yourself, or notice when you're saying it's either this or it's that. I must have it this way and I must have it that way. What about both? Can it be and? And see where that takes you. Okay, so that's it. So this cold, stormy weather is both dreadful, freezing, and fantastic. I mean, you have no idea what's going on the other side of this camera. The clouds are going crazy, the trees are going crazy. Anyway, so lots of love from me, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye.